Okay, good morning, everyone. Jim Clark here at the Synchronicity Sanctuary in Central Virginia to share another contemplative focus with you. And today we're going to look at the following here: takers into givers, true transformation. Takers into givers represents the reversal of polarized dominance in evolving individuated consciousness. It represents true evolving consciousness or true transformation. The word transformation is a synonym for evolution. The word taker represents the negative polarity and its dominance in fragmented, individuated consciousness. The word giver represents the positive polarity and its dominance in unified, individuated consciousness. So what we're looking at here is how we evolve as we meditate and build balance within ourselves in our own human experience. And what does that mean? So we have to step back just a minute and remember that we are active members in the creation game. The primary intention in consciousness, we are consciousness, so that intention is active within all of us, even if we're aware of it or not. And that intention is to fully be itself. And to fully be itself, it has to experience itself. So it's doing that. Right now, it's experiencing itself uh, through an ego, which is a vehicle to be a human and have a human experience, where we have the blessing to be self-reflective. We have the capacity to watch what we're doing, to witness our experience, and to grow through that experience, and to gradually come to the conclusion that everything that we thought was real outside of ourselves is an illusion, and to come to the truth of how we are the creators of what we thought was out there is really in here. And in that process, as we assume authority and responsibility for our creation, we have to come to terms with our ego, because we have an ego. It's not a bad thing, but it has run the show. We have become so engrossed and so identified with our ego that up until you become aware enough to realize that the ego is not a truthful you, but rather another illusion, the process of moving into full ownership of our human experience as source consciousness, in other words, as we fulfill that primary intention in consciousness, we have to go through the process involved with meditation. And that process involves bringing up, making the unconscious conscious, let's put it that way. So all of our history through this life and maybe other lives where we have developed identifications as ego. I am this, I am that, I own this is mine, and so forth and so on. All these connections that we have built over our years up to the point that we started to meditate have to go, because when we meditate, what happens? We go into a state of being that we did not previously encounter in our lives, and our bits and pieces of the truth of who we are revealed to us through experience. We know that that's true because we experience the truth, and as we experience the truth, we also experience the bliss and the expansion and awareness that comes with that. But when you're not meditating, what then? You're not meditating, but you built up the awareness that there's something more, much more to you than your ego. And then you will find that you're called upon to do things, or you want to do things that previously you would never be able to do because you were either too shy, or you felt like you were not capable or worthy of something. And so you encounter your own limitations, the limitations that you built up that are equally illusory. And so it's a process that involves a lot of work and sometimes a lot of effort and a lot of times a lot of patience with yourself. You have to learn to love yourself because you realize what you're going through is something like coming out of your cocoon, and it's not an automatic process because it demands that you participate in this process fully. So here I am talking away about takers into givers, true transformation, because this is one of my roles here at Synchronicity Sanctuary. Not necessarily something that I would have ever chosen to do before coming here, and like a lot of things that I do here. But this is the process of learning to be a giver and becoming a giver. You don't really learn it. It's not something you learn. It's something you become. Because as you give, so you receive. And I find whenever I give some kind of a talk or a presentation, whether it be here on Facebook or whether it be here locally to a group of people, the more I share, the more I get, the higher I get, and the more evolved I become. So you got to step out of your ego more and more each step of the way. And that's just the process that goes on until you have fully relinquished all identif- identification with your ego, and you are now fully aware as consciousness. And so whoever you encounter and whoever you see is the same consciousness that you are, and you are learning to love yourself. So if you love yourself, that includes anyone and everyone that you encounter. It doesn't mean you like them. It doesn't mean that you can be successful in trying to help them, but you're coming from that space in yourself. You're coming from a space of inclusion where whatever shows up in your life is there because it's there. It doesn't matter why. The mind doesn't, you don't let the mind go running off and creating stories about it that is one of the tools of the ego, which justifies not including, of excluding things or judging things or weighing and judging and measuring and all this stuff. So once you get beyond that kind of a process, an automatic unconscious process of looking at and experiencing everything in your life as separate from you, then giving is just an automatic. You know, if somebody wants to know about meditation, if somebody wants to know anything about or have help with the process of evolving themselves, it's just in you to help out, to give, because you're giving yourself something in that process as well. What you give is what you get. That's what my teacher told me many times, and it's quite true. If you identify with your ego and it's resisting something very heavily, there's a lot of fear and resistance about something or someone or some circumstance in your life, it's probably, or most likely, just that. It's just the ego that's trying to maintain its domination in your human experience. And as long as it does, there's going to be an element of fragmentation and exclusion in your life, and you will welcome some that you like and you will dismiss others that you don't like. You want to pick and choose what's going to happen, but the problem with that is we don't control what's going to happen. We're not really running the show here. Consciousness is running the show. But when I say consciousness, I'm talking about from a perspective that is so far removed from the human experience, and yet it includes everything and is aware of everything. Otherwise, how could it orchestrate the show? But it does. It's like you're breathing. You don't think about your breathing. You're not consciously making yourself breathe. But breath just happens. And then you can focus on your breath and you can start to play with your breath and you can change your breath through that. But from every moment in your waking hours, when you're working, say, and you're focused on other things in your life, you do not take over the process of breathing because you don't have to. That's just happening for you. And much of what happens in our life, if not most, is happening in the same way. It's either happening within us or it's happening on a level that includes consciousness itself beyond just one individual. Like when somebody shows up in your life and somebody, you encounter them and all of a sudden you have an experience with them that opens you up to a possibility that you are ready to have in your life. It could be a challenging one. It could be one where you have to demonstrate that you are willing to give where there is resistance, or it's a challenge where you have to accept and include where there is resistance. And yet, this is what we all encounter whether we're meditators or not. If you're not a meditator and you encounter someone and for some reason they turn you off and you don't like them and you have a story about who they are immediately, and your fear starts to rise up in you and your resistance rises up in you, and you want to exclude because you think you have to protect yourself from something, but really there's nothing to protect yourself from because there's only consciousness orchestrating the show, and we are that same consciousness. So that's the life lesson that we're here for, is to learn how to love, which simply means to learn how to be a giver. We're giving to ourselves. We're giving and loving ourselves in truth. In the illusion of the other, we're being givers, right? But when you give to yourself. When you take from yourself. So that's the perspective, the truthful perspective that you integrate into your life, because you come to realize what is real and what isn't, irregardless of what appears to be. So you build your power and you build yourself by taking on what is presented to you for the sake of yourself. But in that process, you are giving. You're giving to somebody who is on their way, and they encounter you because there is some kind of an interaction that might help them. It might give them some kind of a encouragement to meditate, an encouragement to explore meditation and balance in their life and develop it to the point where they become aware and more loving and more. It starts off, of course, what benefits can they have from meditation? That's a big topic today in the world of meditation. But really, the benefits that anyone gets from meditation are benefits that come as you process yourself and get rid of the identifications that have held you back in the beginning. So when I first started to meditate, of course, I started from ground zero, like everybody does, and I had to integrate my experience as I went. I would have the empowerment I would get in my meditations, where I would have very expansive experiences, not all the time, but enough to tell me that there was a lot more to life than what I ever saw before. And yet, when I wasn't meditating, who was I then? I had to and sooner or later I realized that you think you're one thing when you're meditating and you're very expanded and you're having a very blissful experience, but then when you're not, how much of that experience you had in meditation is with you then? And this is the process that happens when we meditate, to become more aware, to become free from the limitations that we encounter as an ego. So we give up our ego slowly or fast, but we do that because we get much more when we're not identified with an ego. We don't try to get rid of it. We're not judging it because we use the ego. It's a tool. But identification with it, that's where all our problems come from. When we're not identified with it, it's just consciousness playing the creation game with itself, moment to moment to moment. And we're part of that game, and as long as you're coming into the game with that awareness, and you're willing to accept and include whoever you're encountering or whatever you're encountering in your life, in your daily life, and see it for what it really is, then your growth is going to be more and more substantiated. And then your high that you get in meditation gradually becomes a constant in your experience. You don't have to sit to feel high. Well, you still have to practice, because if you stop practicing, if you stop meditating, if you get really high and you can feel that in yourself, even when you're not meditating, you think, oh, I'm there, it's all over. It's not. It's a process that involves balance, and balance always is an ongoing process, because life here on earth as a human being demands that whatever your goal is, it's not something that you do and it's over. It's something that you have to maintain. It's something that's worthy of your attention day after day after day. And meditation is especially true. You know? So you have to keep meditating. But when that's a constant in your experience, you realize the value, and you realize that the giving that you're giving is that you're giving to yourself. No matter who it is you think you're encountering, no matter what shows up. It's just another reflection of yourself. So whatever it is they need, whatever they want, if it's something that you can do for them, then you're inclined to do so, because it doesn't matter. You're always interacting with yourself. So there's no fear in that, and there's no resistance. And that is what we're hoping to achieve in our meditative practice eventually, to be free from the fear and the restrictions of it. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. And I hope that somebody out there is listening that will get something out of this sharing that will help them in their journey. So until next week, when we come back and share another contemplative focus, I bid you adieu, and I thank you so much for being here with us today.